All right, so day 19 of me going through my journal entries. The quote for the day is knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And then, how well do you know yourself? Write about a few things you recently discovered about yourself. And if you're following along, go ahead and pause right here and take a few minutes to respond to this question. And I'll be back here in just a second with my response. Okay, so how well do you know yourself? Write about a few things you recently discovered. So, what I wrote was I feel like I've gotten to know myself much better over the last couple of years. That's definitely true. It's become more apparent the more I watch other people. Okay, I don't know what that means. Okay. I don't think most people are very self aware. I can relate to them because I used to be that way. So I feel like I can understand somewhat why they act a certain way and what they're thinking or not thinking about. I also have a better understanding of how some people used to react to me when I was less self aware. Like, I can remember a few instances where I said things and the person didn't really respond negatively, but I sort of got the impression that they, and I don't know, pitied me or something. Like a bit of a patronizing feel, but without coming across as condescending, if that makes sense. Almost like they were wise enough to know where I was in terms of my intelligence and self-awareness to know how to respond in the best way possible to me saying something stupid. Like, if they would have reacted oppositionally, I may have felt threatened and gotten offended, so they chose to stay quiet and change the subject. But in terms of knowing myself, I'm definitely more in tune with my moods and feelings and trying to figure out how to use them to my benefit. So, yeah, I definitely, it's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like now that I understand myself better, because I have spent like a couple of years really trying to figure out myself, trying to figure out what I want. Clearly, I'm not there yet because I don't know what I want, but just understanding myself better and why, I'd gone through a couple of episodes where I felt like, I was kind of depressed. I wasn't happy. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't happy. And I was trying to figure out my moods and, just I knew the way I was living just wasn't working. And so I was trying to figure myself out to try to figure out what do I need to do to fix this problem. And in doing so, it seems like in figuring myself out, it seems like I feel like I figured out other people better. Like, I have a better understanding of how other people act and the moods that they're in and things like that. And I realize that it's something I've always been able to feel, but I just didn't recognize what I was feeling. So, for example, like, I can think back to certain interactions that I've had with people in the past before I was like more, what word am I thinking of? Like, more in tune with like recognizing other people's emotions and moods and things like that. And now I recognize like why I had a weird feel. Like, I didn't know what I was feeling, but there were certain times that I interacted with people that I got just like a weird, to use the like terminology, like a weird vibe from people. Or like, people will call it maybe these days like an energy shift or something like that. Like, I don't know if that's really what it is, like an energy shift, but to explain it, that's what it felt like. Like, I would, be talking to someone and get this weird energy or feeling from them. Or I would say something and like, yeah, like they wouldn't like say anything negative, but I would get the sense that like they just knew I wasn't like in the same place as they were, like in terms of self-awareness or intelligence or whatever, like, and I mentioned it before that, like, I'm glad that we didn't have like as much social media as we do now when I was a kid, because I feel like I would have just said so many like embarrassing things, because I have said a few embarrassing things, but thankfully it's not like there's only been a couple of occasions that I went to the point of like posting something embarrassing on social media, which maybe I'm doing this right now, but yeah, I'm trying to think of like a specific example. Okay, so one example was we were having a well, I don't know, it's not the example. Oh my god. Okay, I don't even want to say this because it's so embarrassing. But I remember like when I first got into my master's program, I don't even know if I want to talk about it. But so I had like a political awakening, I guess, in my mid-20s, where I had just been like exposed to a whole lot of documentaries, and I was going through this time where I'd never been into politics. I'd never been like really religious or anything. But I saw these documentaries that made me like rethink, kind of shifted the reality of what I thought like the world was. And I didn't know what it was, but I'm like, okay, there's certain things I've been lied to about in terms of like how society works and how the government works, and some of these things that have happened in the past that we learned in our history books, maybe they're not like exactly how they've been portrayed to us. And that just kind of was like a whole new world to me of like, oh my gosh, like my reality is like so shifted and shattered. And I don't know how it led me to this, but I got into like libertarianism, and I had read like Ayn Rand, and I don't know, but I didn't really know that much. And I see people like this. Like, the reason I say this is because I see people like this. Like, I see a lot of people that you can tell that they're more recently like into like libertarianism or something like that, or just any sort of like niche group, and they're just like reciting talking points that they've heard on like videos or websites or things like that, and they don't really like fully understand what they're saying. Because I was that way. Like, the reason I recognize it is because I was that way. Like, I thought I had this like grasp on things, and this made sense to me at the time, and I didn't I didn't understand it as well as I thought I understood it, and I would repeat things. And I just remember being at like this like happy hour event, and I can't even remember who asked me, but it was like early on in my master's degree, and we would have these happy hours where like all the professors would come out with like the grad students and have like a beer and pizza and talk or whatever. And I didn't really know any of these professors very well, and somebody asked me, I can't remember exactly what they asked me. I can't remember the question, but I just remember it was something about Obama, because he was president at the time. And I just remember saying something like, well, I just think his policies are too socialist. And I just cringed to think about saying that. And nobody really like, and my group, like, a lot of people think that colleges are like very liberal. In economics, at least, that's not really the case. We had a diversity. There were some like standard Democrats. There was a libertarian, at least one openly like libertarian professor, and there's some more conservative. So it was kind of like a mix. But I think there were probably more like ones that leaned more on the Democrat side. But yeah, that wasn't actually one of the times that I felt like a big shift, but I just remember like the conversation kind of moved on, and I'm kind of glad like nobody asked me to like back up that statement of like, oh, well, what specific policies has he done that are too socialist? Because I wouldn't have been able to respond to it like pointedly like that. And yeah, I just, you know, I was around people that were more intellectual than me, and I didn't have like the intellectual background to kind of keep up with them. And so they just, you know, they didn't make me feel bad, but you kind of get, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely been a few other times that I've been talking to people and felt the energy shift and got the sense that they're like, oh, in Europe too. Because I think the European education system is better than the US. And I think the social and cultural view, I think a lot of people have to tiptoe around Americans, especially when talking about like social issues, because I think, you know, I almost feel like that other countries, especially European countries, talking to Americans, they just understand that we maybe are a little bit brainwashed in our views on things. And I think they just understand that that's just how Americans are, and we have certain views on things, and it's not like worthwhile to push on certain views. And so, like, I didn't talk about politics much in Europe, but yeah, there were just certain times I got the feeling, like, without them being openly like condescending, of like, it wasn't like, it was just almost like pity, like, oh, these poor Americans, you know, but we like you, but it's just sad that you were like, I don't know how to explain it. But anyway, what question was this? Knowing yourself. But yeah, I guess I do feel like I've done a lot of work in knowing myself and recognizing things in myself. And because of that, I don't take a strong stance on a lot of things, because I know what I don't know. And I know that there's a lot that I don't know. And so I recognize that in other people sometimes that hold pretty solid opinions, appear to hold pretty solid opinions on things, but I know that they probably don't know either. But they just haven't gotten to the point to realize like what they don't know, if that makes sense. I don't know. But yeah, so that's my answer to that, and I'll come back with day 20 tomorrow.